Okay, so introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Ryan Cole. I work as an electrical engineer at the Packaging Corporation of America in Walla, Washington. I have an electrical engineering degree from WSU Tri-City or Washington State University Tri-Cities campus. I earned my degree in May 2014. I also have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in philosophy. I earned those from Pullman, Washington in 2008. And my emphasis in when I studied philosophy was in modern philosophy. That's philosophy from about the 1600s to the 1800s, and free will.
Okay, so what do you think about personality cults?
What do you mean by personality cults?
On like what a personality cult is.
Okay, so a personality cult. If we look at Hannah Arnett's discussion of totalitarian governments, and specifically because you previously mentioned that we were going to talk about your focus is on Stalin and Kim Jong-il, yes, and then and Mussolini. Those guys, they're sort of iconic figures in totalitarian governments, and the cult of personality has to do with the myth that surrounds the persons. Sometimes it's well-founded, sometimes not so much. It's mostly a product, I think, of mass media. And mass media coupled with political democratic institutions and economic institutions.
How do you think that these personality cults affect the world and how these leaders have led?
Well, the personality cults, or the sort of iconic status of political figures that usually rises around these people. I think Hitler could also be included in the people who use this. Has to do with mass media and the way that it functions. Obviously, mass media has had a huge impact on the way we live. And you can sort of see it in the way that we run our democratic process. So, for example, a lot of the political candidates have to be pretty good looking. I mean, not like superstars or models, but they have to be good looking enough that people would want to vote for them. And that this is probably largely a product of the television and radio. Also, I think that the way that political messages are constructed, because they're in speeches, they will typically construct certain phrases in certain ways and do that. So, long story short, a personality cult is, I think, a product of mass media. And mass media has a huge impact on politics, obviously.
What is your opinion on the Lenin-Stalin personality cult?
The Lenin-Stalin personality. Okay, so Lenin and Stalin kind of arose out of the Russian society was going through transition. They were, like a lot of places in the world, were having a workforce with a little bit more power, and they ended up, you have the October Revolution with Lenin, but like in the United States we had similar, we didn't have riots, we didn't all become a communist country, but we also had worker revolts and things like that.
Kind of like the Great Depression, how that kind of
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's and in the in the 1800s, the late 1800s, say, there were a lot of strikes, union strikes, and stuff like that. And from the union strikes, or there were a lot of worker strikes, and then out of the worker, because they're very poor working conditions, and out of those, in the United States at least, we got unions and things like that. So in Russia, they took a different political, historic course, and from that you end up seeing a lot of, you see the Lenin coming to power and Stalin. Now, why Lenin specifically? I don't have details on his direct personality. I think that these folk, because of having mass movements like they were, appealing to large numbers of workforce, they ended up getting, because of the large numbers of workforce, they had to have a mass appeal in a way that other leaders haven't. I mean, prior to the large democratization of the people, you had aristocracies, and how you got power is that you were born to the right people and you knew the right people. You didn't have to have a mass appeal like they did.
Who did more, Stalin or Lenin? Like, who did more for the Soviet Union?
In terms of world impact, I would say that Stalin had the biggest. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't necessarily say it's positive impact, but he killed something like 300,000 people of his own people. He was engaged in World War II, and he wasn't a particularly loved character. Mm-hmm. So he instigated certain terror strategies to enforce rule. So when the Nazis invaded in 1942, June 22nd, 1941. They attacked Operation Barbarossa. The Nazis attack Germany or Russia, and Stalin has to respond. So how he gets the people have a certain amount of national pride that they're fighting back, but the conditions are particularly brutal. So what Stalin did was one of the famous examples I can think of offhand is he would line people up and then shoot every 10th person in the face, and then tell them, if you decide to defect and run away from battle, that's what's going to happen to you. So that's your choices. You either fight or you die here. And so obviously they fought for him. I mean, that's not exactly love. Yeah. So I think in terms of personality cult, Stalin had used the mass propaganda system to install a certain sort of image of himself and other people. But in terms of people who you'd want to follow, who you think of as traditionally charismatic leaders, I would guess that Lenin would be the person that you'd want to look at.
What do you think about North Korea?
North Korea has had for personality cults, they have they utilize mass media to create an image around their leadership, and they employ traditional propaganda techniques. I imagine it's a very secretive society to install that. Their leaders, from what I can draw, came into power and partly because they knew the right sorts of people. The Communist Party, it's DHP, it's like the HPR or something, came into power because they were enforced by Russia and China. They basically wanted, and so there was the Korean War, and we ended up having a proxy war, or a small proxy war in Korea, and fighting, and that's why you have South Korea and North Korea. So what do I think about North Korea? I think after the fact, they're a very interesting case study of the use of propaganda to instill power, long-term power, and to probably help subdue the population from revolt. But when it comes to coming to power, they're really interesting in that you get to see how international politics kind of play into how other people gain power.
And going off of that, I learned that Stalin basically gave Kim Il-sung the okay to say you can invade the southern part of Korea, and so basically they were allied because Northern Korea wanted communism. The Soviet Union had communism, but South Korea was kind of with the U.S. because they didn't want communism. And how do you think that just two really strong personality cults helped North Korea?
Yeah, there's Stalin. Let's see. So Russia has a lot of rich resources, and they benefited hugely from the industrialization of their workforce initially. So around the time that Kim Jong-il was trying to come into
Kim Il-sung.
Yeah, Kim Il-sung. Sorry, Kim Il-sung. Around the time that they were trying to come into power, Russia had a lot of resources that they could aid the North Korean government with, or it wasn't North Korean government at that time, but so yeah, it was certainly helpful. When it comes to personality cults themselves, I think that Stalin might have been able to help in part because of his propaganda and because of what he was doing. But in North Korea, I would guess he hadn't established himself as a dominant leader, but Stalin certainly helped that.